Hello, viewers. I'm SB, and welcome back to System Shock, where today it's the chess day. And let me sort of update you on where I'm at in the real world with this, so that y'all have some basis for my commentary here. After the last episode, I spent probably like 2 or 3 hours just playing chess with this computer over and over again and losing over and over again. And it's frustrating to be that bad at a thing in a video game, but also I know that like chess is a kind of problem that computers are very good at solving, and also I know that I am like not any good at chess. I know that I have not played chess, quote unquote, seriously since I was like 10 years old, and like me losing to a chess computer is absolutely the expected outcome, right? So, that being the case, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to spend one episode trying to beat this computer at chess. If this doesn't work, if we haven't gotten it by the end of the episode, I am going to go ahead and admit defeat. I'm going to throw in the towel. And I should say it's like several days later, because I just didn't have time to come back to it. So this is being recorded right before it will be posted. And I wanted to have time to really like throw myself at this, but I just didn't. So in the interest of moving on, I'm going to try this for an hour. If it doesn't work, I'm going to admit defeat. And when I say admit defeat, I don't mean walk away without the reward. I mean cheat. I mean I will use a different computer to beat this computer at chess, because I do want whatever's in that door. But I would like to get it myself. I would like to earn it, or with my own brain instead of with somebody else's electronic brain. So yeah, without any further ado, let's try to play some chess here. And I could have learned some things about chess, strategy, openings, whatever, in the interim, but I didn't. Like I said, I've been real busy, so we're just gonna basically reinvent how to be good at chess from first principles live here on the internet for an audience of people who are almost certainly better at chess than I am. All right. In theory, I like open up the bishop, and open up the queen. These are powerful pieces, although I will say I definitely feel like I am less good at using my queen than the AI is at using theirs. So if we threaten the rook, or the knight rather, the knight just moves, or they move the king's pawn forward. Like, this is not a super valuable play, right? It does get my bishop out in the world and able to threaten things, but I don't think necessarily in a valuable way, and it's maybe more vulnerability than it is threatening ability. Technically, I can move the queen to put their king in check, but that's the same thing, right? It's just this pawn moves forward, and then we have to back off. That said, the queen being out in the world is definitely more interesting, because once I've done that, I can move back and stay in front of the pawns, and the queen has the ability to actually do some harm. So what if we do play a little bit aggressively? Do this, force the pawn forward. Is doing this and forcing the pawn forward better than just moving the queen here into the open? Perhaps not. Yeah, I think I'm just going to do that directly then. Ah, right. Well, the thing is, then they just open up the bishop. Doing it here would have just created this situation, but with that pawn one space forward, which isn't like actually a lot more interesting. I don't know. I'm going to just kind of play around a little bit because I do not have strats. So, we have a semi-protected position for the moment. I would like to... What are you doing with your king? I don't know. The king in that position doesn't do very much, it feels like. I'm going to move my knight forward into a position that covers the queen, mostly out of an abundance of fear. That's not a great way to play the game, but it's an honest way to play the game. Honesty counts for something, right? So I don't have much in the way of like offensive capability, and that's probably going to be a big part of figuring out how to win at this, is figuring out how to generate some ability to take enemy pieces without losing my own pieces, or at the very least to trade up, right? I don't know for sure, like we have to move the queen now, and there's a bunch of different ways we could do this. Perhaps the better play would have been to move this knight up, not to protect the position the queen's in now, but to protect the position the queen is in after moving on to this thing. Although what I'm doing there is just proposing a queen for queen trade, which honestly is probably to our benefit. The AI plays better with their queen than I play with mine, but like if we get down to the more complicated pieces, I'm still going to be getting outplayed. So what if instead we simply I can move in front of the knight to a position that feels pretty neutral. Threatenable, though. Not in a way that actually matters, I think. And if they move the pawn forward, then I just eat the knight for free. I'm trying to figure out, like, where's the way that I get kicked in the face for doing that? And I think the answer might be that I don't, at least not immediately. Okay. Now, obviously, it's not safe to just kill the knight if they don't move the pawn forward. Do I want to move my knight up into that position? Because like if I do place my queen here, it is check, so they have to do something. They have to take the queen trade, or they have to move their king into, you know, a pretty restricted backwards position here. And I have to be thinking in terms of like long-term strategy. In particular, what we need to be thinking about is, like I said, ways to generate an offensive position that allows me to actually take a piece. Can you imagine a chess game where you got away with taking one of their pieces? That would be so rad. So this bishop open. We have a bishop back here that's still completely locked up. We have both of our rooks that are still completely locked up. And like if we're going to construct an offensive, we probably need more firepower, really, right? Like how do I get these other pieces live in a way that's useful? I am going to bring the knight forward. So here's a problem with this position. And I know I talked about this last time. Totally forgot about the bishop because the bishop was fucking invisible behind the king because you don't play chess from like the edge of the table looking just barely over it. And like, how do you forget about the bishop is a very fair question, but also one that it is now too late to ask meaningfully. Well, that's a pretty bad mistake. That's a reset the game mistake. There is no way to reset the game aside from losing, and the AI will take 6,000 moves to checkmate you because they will not accept an offered mate. They will take the safest move 100% of the time. One criticism that I definitely have of this AI, this AI's chess playing, not ability so much as choices, is that they play in a way that's so boring. It is so boring to play against, and you know I know that's like that's playing to win. And I'm sure that it's different on different puzzle difficulties. I'm actually really curious, and I don't even know how I would look this up or understand the answers, frankly. But I wonder how difficult the different puzzle level chess AIs are. Because, like I said, chess is a problem that is like very well understood by computers. But I'm really curious. Like, is the maximum level chess AI in this game something that like a real chess player would have a problem with? I'm not doing anything in particular right now. I have no strategy. I'm just kind of fucking around. I should probably be playing with intent. So there's no way to make this move forward that matters. I'm drawing their pawns out a bunch, probably more to their benefit than to mine. I have zero like experience thinking of chess as a game seriously. Gosh, I moved on to modern board games before I came back to chess as an adult. I've played way more Go as an adult than I have chess, which is kind of I think kind of strange for an American at least. I mean, we've got to open some stuff up, right? We got to make it so that I can actually use my pieces offensively. Threatening pawns with pawns feels pretty not interesting. But I guess it's probably a pretty critical part of the game because you like have to start constructing a situation, right? Like they have this pressure front where they have the pawns protected by the other pawns, and it takes a bunch of boring ass moves to set that shit up. I'm gonna do this. It gets us a little bit of openness. Interesting that they moved the queen up there. So I'm tempted to go bishop to h3 to force that queen to do something. Obviously, I don't expect her to just come take me because I don't think the AI is not going to consider bishop for queen a good trade. Does she just back up if I do that? No, okay. So she basically just that's not that different from her just backing up, right? And that feels to me like a value positive move because we've created additional offensive potential and caused the AI to block off some of its offensive potential. That feels like an ability to harm plus kind of move. If I move this knight up to here now, the queen just backs up. And then I have no follow up that is interesting. And eventually this pawn moves forward, right? It's not actually very compelling. Yeah, I need to create more ability for my rooks to get out. Let's see if interesting. Boy, I bet that movement makes sense for some reason that I can't currently. That move probably, like, the AI is probably protecting against something that's like 3 moves down the line, but I don't even see what threat it is responding to. It kind of looks like it's just moving back and forth, flummoxed, mind blown by the possibilities. All right, so in this position, does it make sense for me to step this pawn forward? We start creating this like cycle of violence, right? If I step this pawn forward, do they take the kill that leads to my kill? I mean, with their queen in literally like in that square in particular, obviously it's a pretty sketchy move on our part. It gets less sketchy if my rook is over. Because I would gladly trade a rook for a queen. Although I would love to trade things that are not rooks or queens for their queen. Listen, we all want things. Pawn forward leads to. I mean, maybe they don't even bother taking my pawn in that position because, like, it's not super valuable for them to do so. If they do take my pawn, then I take their pawn, and they get first blood here. But if I move my bishop out first, what are you doing? If I move my bishop out first, then my queen is protecting the rook so they don't have that clean run across anymore. I feel like they're moving in such a way that I feel like they have the advantage and I just don't really see it. And when I start doing this, the way the position collapses is going to be very unfavorable to me. But I want to see it. Okay, they just moved forward. Literally did not consider it. Was not even on the table. All right, well, they've created like a little spot where we can nestle a knight, although I guess that's directly in line of the bishop. Yeah, it's very difficult to find a spot where we can project any kind of offensive pressure on any of their pieces at all. It's frustrating. It's frustrating play. How dare they be good at this? All right, if we want to advance this other side, the pawn structure on the other side, to give us room to work that other rook into play, how would we do that? I mean, obviously this bishop's current position is problematic, but maybe not. Maybe we don't worry about that. Maybe we just move the knight out and bring the bishop across a little bit. Okay. So creating a line. It's actually kind of interesting. So if I move the bishop to e5, or the knight, sorry, I keep doing that. If I move the knight to e5, we're not in immediate danger, and a move to g6 is somewhat threatening from there, right? In a way that they don't have a totally immediate counter for, unless they bring the queen back across. I suppose actually just even moving their king to f7 neutralizes that. Is there any way for me to take advantage of them moving their king to f7? No, I don't think so. So maybe the better play right now is simply moving the rook, or even I could castle, yeah. We have opened up the ability to castle. I don't know if I think that's valuable. Ugh, I have no idea when it's right to do stuff like that. Well, I do kind of want to put one of the knights forward here. Let's see what happens. Okay. What happens is they move a pawn into a position where if I knight to g6, they simply move the rook forward. However, I can move this knight to here, threaten g6 from this space with cover. Okay, so the queen is threatening, but the queen won't actually take this knight. That's not going to happen. Well, I did something that made it think, at least. Okay. So that's fake as hell. I'm not worried about that at all. You wouldn't dare. It's a bad trade to go knight for bishop here, right? I don't know. I wish I felt like I had more ability to threaten here. Is there a way to set up... This poor bishop is like trapped forever behind this pawn line, which is frustrating. If I just make a play on some other part of the board, so like this is a situation where, like in Go, I would look at this and I would seriously consider just trying to get +1 somewhere else. I'm legendarily bad at Go as well, though, so don't treat this as like me bringing my expertise from another field to bear. Trying to figure out like what else can I do? I don't know that I have a move that adds meaningful pressure to this part of the board. And at this point, all I can do is disengage or push the bishop. I think. I don't really like either of those options. So yeah, maybe I play somewhere else and try to generate some local advantage in another location. All right, question. Does this move forward, offering the free kill to this pawn, make any sense? What I'm thinking about here is trying to free this bishop, right? If I punch a hole here, then am I sure that I get anything? The thing is, like, this pawn is not actually providing any value right now. Right? This thing is in no danger. There's no reason that the AI would take it, even if they could. It's not doing anything. And so you guarding it is like zero value. I could move this pawn up 2. This pawn is still on the 7 row. and create another little ridge, which gives me more time, more space to move around behind it. But it still doesn't actually get, like, critically, that keeps all my pawns on black squares. It still doesn't actually let this bishop out to play. But if I do that, this move forward, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna open up my backfield a little bit more here. Okay. So you move the bishop out so that the attack is no longer available. The bishop is the weakest big piece. It feels the weakest. I'm thinking, like, in terms of would I trade a knight for it? The answer is no. The answer has been no for the moment. So presumably they will take this trade. Do I just let them? Maybe I'm cool with it. I can be cool with it if it gets me something else, right? If it gets me some kind of other value. What would that look like? Me getting some other kind of value from it. Well, if I plan to counter the bishop with this pawn, then moving this rook to G gets me an opening. I could use a rook to start being threatening. That's something. And if they've lost their black bishop, rook on black is, like, kind of interesting. Just being careful to... I'm trying to stay aware of the diagonals. I think I'm going to do that. Do you go for the trade? You do not. You instead make a move that I'm not sure I understand. What was the value of that? I'm, like, looking at this. So you're still covering the bishop, which isn't in danger. And you've opened up this move down this this black diagonal here, but again, I might argue that there isn't actually a danger there. Huh. Yeah, interesting. So do I now want to move this pawn forward? We still have this pawn covering the knight. I may be a little reluctant to move the king's pawn in that way. But if I move this pawn forward and allow one of these two to take it if they want, I guess actually allowing this pawn to move sideways is a bad idea right now. I don't in particular want to do that. I'm gonna prep for moving this pawn forward instead, I think. This is like a very fucking incremental game of chess here. That knight's not a direct threat to anything right now. Yeah, I don't know. Weird. This pawn is currently protected by that knight, so this space opening up doesn't get me... Like, yeah, opening this rook up right this second doesn't actually get me anything. The question is really just, like, how do I break up this stalemate in a way that makes any kind of sense? Can't figure out what they were doing with this knight move. It's making me a little nervous that I can't figure out what they were doing with that. We have to break the pawn structure somewhere. I think that's the only thing that really makes sense, and maybe I use the king's pawn to do it. Alright, so if we move this pawn forward, offer them... offer them that kill. I'm trying to figure out what the positive ramifications of that are. It makes this pawn undefended, but that's not useful to us at all. This pawn not being defended by another pawn is of zero value for sure. Moving this thing forward. If I do move this pawn forward, I think I'm going to want that bishop to be in that position. And so I am doing like the safe prep moves while everybody's in the back behind everything. But I'm looking at this board state and it just feels like it's not going anywhere for either of us. And we need to figure out a way to repair that. Okay, queen forward is like a nothing move, is like a time wasting move. I don't think it does anything at all for them. Like they're doing nothing moves because they don't see a place to move forward for advantage either. If I sacrifice king's pawn with the queen in front of the king, it still doesn't really do anything because this space will be backed up by one of the other two pawns. So like I can't move the queen in anyway. Well, I'll say this. I'm feeling a little bit better about this play because of the fact that the AI is not just like routing me. But it is still pretty grim. So move you forward. Pawn takes you, threatens bishop. Bishop can't retake because the other pawn kills the bishop if I do. So yeah, that's just sacrificing value for no reason. I can bring this pawn forward as support for bringing another pawn forward. Okay. The king literally cannot take that knight. Now I can move this pawn forward and at least like get my pawn back. This is going to break stuff up, but I'm not sure if it's good. Not sure not sure if it's actually good for us the way it's going to break stuff up. But I think at some point somebody has to start playing chess. Let's see. I think I've reinforced as best I can here. And the thing is, Shodan can just play like defensive bullshit chess forever. She doesn't actually have to win the game. This is somewhat lopsided by the fact that she's playing for a draw and I'm playing for a win. So even if we were equal opponents, that does put her at an advantage. But then on top of it, we are not equal opponents. How you doing there, Shodan? Still not my turn? She seems baffled by this play. It's like, filthy human, why would you do that? Does something happen if it doesn't act within a certain amount of time? Did I did I kill it? Did I put it in like a loop or something? Okay. No, eventually they just accept the rook for knight trade. I mean, I guess it's rook for two knights. I think I like it. Like, that may be me being very bad at chess, but so I mean, clearly it's a thing they were torn about. Now what? Killing a rook without losing a rook or a queen feels like a pretty big victory to me. But I'm sure losing two knights for it was wrong. In a like basic mathematics of chess kind of way. Now that there's no longer a rook on this side, I kind of want to move this pawn up. Right? Take. I guess this situation is not totally trivial because of the okay, what if we start by taking this? What I'm thinking is that a lot of the violence ends up happening in this square, which is guarded by their knight, and I don't have as much cover on it. But if we start by clearing this, then I move this thing up, I end up with the piece in this square. Or I end up with a straight shot through the board like that. Is there something that I can do with that? So I'm thinking, like, if I move my queen to here, it actually makes that pawn's life kind of awkward. So maybe a little aggressive. Okay, so they move their queen to there. I'm trying to, like, move my chess camera around the board, which is not a thing. I don't know what that move is. That doesn't make sense to me, but that's, I'm sure I'm missing something. So now I'm thinking, if I move this to here, they can't take with this piece. So they take with that one, I retake. And then if I take this piece, what I'm trying to do is open up a version of this where I end up being able to sweep that bishop with my bishop. I don't know that it actually happens, though. Oh, whatever. I'm going to do this. Okay. So they create check. What's the best version of me breaking this check? Is it king to f2? Because I want to generate, obviously, the situation where this queen doesn't just run forward and recreate another solid check. And I think king to f2 is the one. King to here. I guess king to f1 is fine, too. Yeah, she can't really do anything about king to f1, I feel like. King to f2 has the rooks being able to see each other, which I kind of like as a defensive measure. Just kind of like not thinking about any specific threat, but thinking about like general aesthetics of play. So we counter take. That pawn is still not a danger. I'm in check. That's, I guess, a danger of king to f2. Is it wrong to move my king forward in this situation? I guess if I move my king forward, they have knight to g5 for recheck. That's not actually a thing that I can interact with at all. Like it's just a free move, but I don't know that it's a problem. Right? They do that, and then I move. If I move to here, and that knight chases me, he dies. He's not really threatening anything else right now. Okay, so now we have the knight pinned. But they did prevent me from making the pawn move that I wanted to make. They bought the time necessary. And this position is backed up by a pawn, which is strong. So at this point, if I move the pawn forward, if I move this pawn forward, then the bishops see each other. If they elect to take, I get to eat their bishop with my queen in a way that there is not. So they're going to make some kind of move to back that up, right? If all they do is move their queen into a retaliatory position, I think I just take the bishop for bishop trade, because with me having both of my rooks, I think just reducing the number of pieces they have to create check is valuable as long as I maintain like queen, rook, rook. I don't want to move a thing forward here and create a position where pawn ends up threatening queen. We could move a rook forward to not so much threaten the knight as to make it. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. I was gonna say it's like to defend against their queen moving in, but like the real danger is anything that kills that knight is gonna get pawned. All right, so the clear of that bishop is safe, though, right? Interesting. So they've pinned their knight, but in a different spot. Okay. How much am I worried about that? All right. So if we rook over to e1, we force that queen into a position that's a little bit less threatening. Actually, here's an interesting question. Well, I was going to say if I from here queen to c8, doesn't that create kind of an awkward situation for them where my queen is threatening like almost everything and they don't really have anything that they try to move into position to threaten the queen gets reflexively killed? But the answer to that question is actually no, because they just move the black queen to here, and then it's like if I kill the queen, if I don't kill the queen, I die. If I do kill the queen, I get killed by the knight, and if I do kill the knight, I get killed by the rook. So that's not real. That's not real chess, actually. Um, that said, I do kind of like this. So that gives me a lot of projection deep into their board. The rook is protected by the king for the moment. Still doesn't really open up my bishop, but... Alright, now their queen is looking right at my queen, which I think is just me moving my queen, which I was going to do next anyway. The question is to where? Like, what's the valuable position for the queen in this situation? You have to be pretty wary about their king. If I go queen to h4, well, if I go queen to h4, they're just going to go like queen to d8, right? What I was thinking is queen to h4 sets up a rook move to here that's very good, but they'll just set up so it's like then they take the rook with their queen, and I don't have a clean answer because if I retake, then I lose my queen to their king. And this pawn is preventing my rooks from defending my queen, which is actually really funny. I'll tell you, I would like, in this moment, to be able to move this bishop back to the one row. Maybe the play is just queen to d3, create check. Which is just, it's a safe move that makes them have to take a nothing move, so that I can essentially get another move right after. I think that's okay. Yeah, it's just basically just like a time waster for them. Because actually clearing out that pawn is of some value to us now. Okay. Yeah, and they still have like a very effective web of pawn threats on this side of the board. Okay. Stick with me here. I'm looking at this and thinking queen to f5. They put their queen on black for reasons that I'm not clear on. Queen to f5 gives me a position where I'm threatening a bunch of their pieces. And what I'm trying to do is create space for my rooks to be able to come forward a little bit, right? Queen to f5 creates a space. It creates an atmosphere of overwhelming negativity for their pieces. I guess once again, it is like just queen to d8's really a good counter, because it still means I can't bring the rook forward to eat the knight. I need to figure out a way of breaking this cluster that doesn't result in a king immediately eating my rook. And right now, taking this pawn with their bishop just gets my bishop killed as well. Maybe queen to f3 to protect the bishop move makes no, hell no. Queen into the knight's attack zone is actually very bad. Here's the problem, like all of these spaces are bad all of the time right now. I guess actually they've created a moment here where I could go rook to g4 without being in immediate danger, and then that gives me another move afterward to sort of create cover. So what if I do that? What if I rook to g4, they create a diagonal threat via the queen. I create a diagonal threat with my queen. Such that they dare not take the rook, and they won't in that situation. Then what did they do? They can't move the king up to threaten the rook, because the king literally can't take the rook in that circumstance. Well, no, they still could though, right? Because the danger then becomes like if they have queen up there, king h5, then if I don't do something, they queen in. I can't queen in to take their queen in defense, because then their king just kills my queen. And then I am left with a single rook. I'm left with like rook, bishop, king, which I don't know if you can checkmate a decent player with that while they still have like a whole side. Probably not, right? Like I have to actually be super careful about losing pieces at this point, which is a thing I did not really think about. So yeah, like these spaces don't feel like valuable places to move to right now. What if we get really aggressive and we like rook into their backfield? If I rook to here. Oh, sorry. If I rook to there, the knight takes me. Stupid knights. It's really rough. What I need to do is I need to create a position where I'm threatening this with enough pieces that if I use something to take this, the king can't immediately kill the piece that I used to do that. Is that like queen to e2 in preparation for queen to g4? Or is it trying to move... Maybe it's trying to move this rook up? I'm going to try to move this rook up. And let's see what they do with that. I think that's like a very, very low value play. But then if I move the rook to here... What if I stop here and I do the bishop thing? If I move this rook to here, what do they have to do? Because I'd be okay losing trading the bishop for a big piece would be fine. Even their other bishop, I think I would be okay with that. So rook to here threatens bishop to this pawn without much in the way of retaliation. And if I can get away with that, I can do some real harm. Like if I do that, they have to throw their bishop. So then they have to try to put another piece. I actually kind of like that. I'm going to do that. Let's see what they do with it. Yeah, like they have to put additional pieces in defensive position. But like that's not a real threat. They're not going to use their queen. I mean, they use their queen last, right? Can I... So it's like I would bishop the pawn, they bishop my bishop. And then if I rook the bishop, they queen the rook, which is bad news. If I move this rook now to here, I can threaten the knight in kind of a similar way. They have one turn to put something on it. And it'll be the queen, not their other bishop, probably. Well, it doesn't matter. If they put one other piece on it, then I have to spend a turn putting another piece on it. Oh, it's really difficult to break this. This pawn is still h2. So, okay, if I move this rook to here, they have to immediately make a move. So they could make a move to defend the rook. They could also just move this pawn forward. But what I'm thinking is this pawn can actually go to there. And moreover, it is perfectly safe to do so. Because I don't care what happens to my pawn. Yeah, wait, if I do that move, what do they do? In this position. They can bring the king forward to threaten, and I just say, okay, whatever, and trade the pawn. They have to move the knight if I do that. None of my other stuff is in immediate danger. So where do they move the knight to, and what do they get out of it? I guess by moving the white rook to here, I've created a situation where they do have some good moves, actually. Let's see. If I move to here, they respond by moving the knight here. That threatens this rook. But all I do is move the rook out of the way. And we're fine. It doesn't threaten... It threatens this pawn, I guess. But not in a serious way, because I would just kill it. If they move here, the queen kills this thing for free. I'm going to do it. Okay, they're going to back up. That really does change the situation like a bunch. Because now we can play... we can play forward on this pawn a little bit differently. What happens if I go queen to here, or even rook to there? Again, I have to be really careful how many pieces I trade off. I mean, I can mate with rook queen, obviously, or a pair of rooks if I'm canny. So if we rook to here, sorry, this is like the slowest game of chess that I have ever played. If I rook to here, well, I guess they moved that knight back into a position where the knight is now covering the pawn, which makes it even harder to kill, and maybe not super worth it. How do I pierce this position? I almost wish I could just lose this pawn. Like, obviously, we'd be in a very different position with with rook queen over here if there were fewer pawns on this side of the board. So we still can't safely move there or threaten from either of these spaces. This damn bishop being alive is really causing a lot of problems. It's like, what moves do I have that aren't fake? Is I think a real salient question here. I can put the queen directly in front of the pawn. No, that's no good, because then I'm making this thing... Well, I mean, the thing kind of threatens the pawn. If I move you to here, then the pawn trade, in theory, looks like bishop takes pawn, bishop takes bishop, rook takes pawn, knight takes rook, rook takes knight, queen takes rook. Like, I lose everything, and they end up on top. I lose one more real piece than they do. That pawn is invulnerable. At the moment, their king is pinned here, and this pawn is preventing any kind of diagonal attack. But maybe the thing to do is to fight around it. So... this black bishop is still very hemmed in, though. If I can't move any of my other pawns forward. If I move this pawn forward, I'm just creating a situation where my queen ends up under threat. So probably the thing we need to do is move the queen. I just don't know where to. It feels like a move to e2 is like pretty safe. I'm not threatening anything, but I'm also not being threatened. And the pawn, as much as it's annoying, it's also pinned in place by the bishop, so I think I am going to make the e2 move. Just that moving this pawn forward is not quite so toxic. Okay, right, and they're bringing their other knight to bear, because at this point, they must. Okay, so if we try to break up the pawn situation over here, if I move this forward, they are going to claim it. If they claim it from here, all that lets me do is move this thing forward to get grabbed. Like, it doesn't actually... I don't think it's actually helpful. But also, it does feel like I gotta do something. This pawn's in a really awkward spot, not being able to actually, like, threaten the king in any way ever. I guess I have to remember this is not actually an unsafe space to be in because they can't attack with the pawn to there. It's just also not a useful space to be in. The problem is kind of that there aren't useful spaces to be in, I guess. It's like the major issue we're facing. If I queen to g4, every one of their pieces is watching every one of their other pieces like 4 ways. It's that fucking queen. And now that they've moved the this thing, they're gonna get their rook involved. I don't see how I win this. This isn't an immediate danger. That's kind of like a weird nothing play. I mean, the play it obviously immediately prevents is me going queen to g5, which would be annoying for them to deal with at the least. We would force the king backwards. But I don't know that, like, I don't know that sequence goes anywhere super powerful for me. Because what? It's like, I move here, king moves backwards, I move to h5, king moves behind the pawn, and then I can't really pursue any further. I'm still not in any danger. I wonder if moving the pawn forward makes sense here. Try to create a situation where we have access to the threat on this pawn from more spaces to the right, just kind of like opening up space for threatening the middle of their position. Maybe. Yeah, as things stand, I can't really threaten their queen. Obviously, I can move forward, but they'll just give me their queen. You know, they'll take my queen with theirs and then allow me to rook the queen so that the king can rook the rook. Unless both my rooks are in the same column, in which case the king can't rook the rook. So what happens now? I guess their queen's not really in danger because they have this bishop, right? Or they have this knight. But if I were to say move my queen to here, they are literally forced to take my queen with their queen because it's the only move that gets them out of check. Then we rook the queen. Then their king has to move either here or here because he can't take the rook back due to the other rook's position. And then all we've done is trade queens. And we forced their king way back into the corner, but like, I don't even know if that's worth anything. I don't know if that's valuable to do. I think in a very real way, it doesn't matter. It's kind of interesting though, because like, what if we do trade queens in this situation? If we do trade queens in this situation, then they're left with bishop, knight, knight, rook against bishop, rook, rook. And like, there's a pawn advantage, and I don't want to discount the pawn advantage because, um, a promoted pawn is a real thing. You do have to care about that. Gosh, I'm thinking about it though. I am wondering if maybe that is the move. If maybe it is in fact correct to trade the queens here. The pair of knights is harder to work with. I had to be so careful if we do that. For a second there, I was thinking, what if we take that pawn instead? But the answer is they kill the queen with their knight instead of with their queen, which is actually like hugely beneficial to them. Because then if I rook, obviously they use the queen to clear the rook, and well, actually, hold on. If I do this, queen takes queen, rook takes queen. King has to move here or here, and then I get this knight for free. Actually, I think this is really good. Yeah, and then you're in like full fleeing mode. And I get to break a bunch of shit. Right, this is perfectly safe, which unbalances the pawn situation. And in fact, I can take this pawn too. Yeah, apologies for like sitting. I was probably staring at that for like 15 minutes, huh? But I think this is good. So now I do make the pawn move, right? Do I have to move the rook out first? I don't think so. I think maybe I move the rook to here, actually. Okay, yeah, that's fair. And I can't move here to threaten the knight. But I can just get out of the way. Like I can rook to here very safely. Or honestly, even just back to here. And let them try to figure that out. So that I can do a full retreat if I need to. And then that puts them in the awkward position of all of a sudden of having to solve the pawns. Their knight moves to here, that makes me immediately have to move again. But the move can just be to there. At which point their only play is king moves here. Yeah. Right? Okay, so yeah, they just don't threaten me right away. Which seems fine. And do I just walk this pawn up? Like obviously we have the situation over here as well. But if I walk this pawn up to the point where it's a threat on that pawn, I think that's actually pretty good. But there's also obviously like these moves. If I move this pawn to here, well, I was going to say, if I move this pawn to here and they don't take it, do I move it to there? But that is actually at this moment a free kill for that knight, so probably not. I could drop back to here, but then they just move the rook to there to cover. I'm like, killing this pawn is still big value. Killing this pawn is still decent money because it gives me like 2 open strips of board here to control with the pair of rooks. Trying to figure out if I move this pawn up, I can't move it to there, but it means that this bishop kind of can't ever move. Because if that on the turn where that bishop moves, we move again, and then when it tries to move into position to stop us, we can. Oh, I want a promotion so bad. It'd be such a big deal. How do I? Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm going to be playing really slowly for a little while here because I'm trying so hard to figure out how not to lose this game from here. But I think this is like really promising. Maybe I do just go out of my way to fuck up their pawns for a bit. Like this move is totally safe. It requires them to react. And now that that's like that, we have this play. I mean, I have to be careful about them getting a promotion as well. And they're allowed to move this pawn forward again now that the king has moved. Actually, maybe what I do now is walk this pawn up. Because if I put the pawn here, they can't safely rook it. Or they can't safely knight it. They can move the king forward to stop it from moving forward. Obviously, they couldn't kill it, but I'm just thinking if I get the pawn to here, they either have to take it or we get to get the pawn out of this column, which makes this column no longer safe for the king to hide in, and it might be really powerful actually. This bishop is doing a really good job of very much dampening my hopes on clearing any getting any pawns to the front. Right now, if I do this, I actually don't hate this. Right, because they have to do that. Kind of have to. And then we can march some pawns forward here. It might make sense to move this thing up. If I do this and they move this pawn forward, how sad am I about that? I don't know, like fairly sad? You're not actually in danger right this second. I could move this rook. Yes, this is what I was thinking. And then now that now that that piece is no longer on black, well, you can't take both of them, but yeah, I do lose one of them, huh? That being the case, what's the move that we make to take advantage of losing one of them? I guess it's like this, and then he gets to claim that one, and then I rescue this one by taking the other pawn. Yeah, I'm gonna manage to lose this game after all of this work. So I need to move my king, right? We are now in like very considerable danger from their rook. This knight. Yeah. I just don't have enough pieces left to trap a knight. I can't do anything. So fucking frustrating. All right, so if I move the rook to here, the knight can't make a move into a position that threatens the remaining pawn. It can't make a move into a position that threatens the remaining bishop without getting itself killed by the rook. Is the better move for that to move the bishop or to move the rook to protect? It's actually probably to move the king to protect, huh? I'm getting very little value out of this bishop right now. All right, if I move the bishop to here, the rook has a really easy move to threaten. What I'm thinking is it puts pressure there, and then, you know, like eventually we run the rook up to there. A thing we can do right now is move our pawn forward. The king can't move forward. Move our pawn to here, the king can't take it. And then we can try to figure out some kind of shenanigans around that. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty Feeling pretty stupid and exposed now. Like, I'm definitely just like morale is flagging. I feel like I almost won this and then I lost it. And it's probably already over. There's nothing I can do about it at this point. If I move the bishop to a position where I threaten the rook has 5, 6, 7 different moves that get it to safety. Like, it doesn't actually do anything to do that, right? I need to find a way of threatening the rook that also provides. I need to find a way of threatening one piece that also provides something else. And I am concerned that there is no such move. Yeah, I don't think there is. Okay. Interesting. Not sure I understand that. Now, obviously, the pawn promotion threat is fake as long as they have a rook sitting in the back row anyway. So I need to figure out a way of dealing with that. I guess the threat here is that if I move my pawn, I don't know what this thing's doing. Okay. In either case, that makes it makes it a lot more difficult for them to defend their king with that pawn, which is really what I was after. God, like every valuable piece on the board is on the wrong color space. Is there a way? Like, I definitely can't check. I definitely can't mate with rook. I know that. With with just rook. Technically, I suppose a rook king mate is possible if the opponent has no other pieces. That'd be a hell of a hill to climb. How do I make anything happen from this position? Because again, like Shodan can play to a draw, and that's perfectly fine. Um, if I move my rook to here, then obviously that means a pawn move forward is kind of threatening. The knight has to take a couple of moves to get the kill. or to threaten check. The rook can never threaten check. I mean, you know what I mean. It would have to. There would be a bunch of moves around. The pawn can't threaten check as things stand right now. I mean, theoretically, it should not be possible for me to win anymore from this position. I definitely can't win without that pawn. Yep. Okay. I said I definitely can't win without that pawn, and then didn't kill the piece. Like, I was gonna lose the pawn either way, but I could have at least taken the knight. But yeah, this game's over, obviously. All right, this is the surrender move. I mean, I'm gonna just reload the save because, like, even with this situation, they're gonna find a way to make it 15 turns before they mate me, because they're terrible at closing the game like that. Ah, that's really frustrating. I really thought I was gonna. There was a point in that game where I really thought I was gonna be able to do it. Well, I gave it what I think is a really honest shot. I'm absolutely going to cheat it now. So what I'm going to do is work myself into a winning position. I'm going to go ahead and close it out here. That's all for today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all so much, those of you who wanted to watch me play a bad game of chess, for watching me do so. When you come back next time, I am going to be in a basically about to win the game position with the final move ready to go, and then we'll see what's through here, and then we'll go on with the system shock. We'll play some of the actual video game, and we'll see you then.